Right now, you are target. You enter a room, and because you crave respect, you speak first, you speak longest, and you reveal your next move just to prove you're the most capable person in the circle. You think that by showing your intelligence, you're building a fortress of authority. But in the cold, ruthless theater of human nature, you are actually painting a bullseye on your own back. Machiavelli knew that the most dangerous man in any room isn't the one who displays his genius, but the one who hides it under a mask of average simplicity. He understood that human beings are biologically programmed to be threatened by what they cannot understand and to sabotage anyone who makes them feel inferior. You are currently being hunted by the snakes in your social circle precisely because you are too visible. You've been told that knowledge is power, but Machiavelli's secret is far more lethal. The appearance of ignorance is the ultimate power. This video is a psychological re-engineering of your presence. I'm going to reveal the dummy strategy, the brutal art of acting less intelligent than you are to bypass the ego of your enemies and seize your share of glory. Watch closely, because from this moment on, the nice guy who needs to be the smartest in the room is dead. The sovereign is putting on his mask. You've felt it, haven't you? That subtle shift in the vibration of the group when you share a sophisticated insight or a complex business strategy. You see that flicker of resentment in your friend's eyes, or that helpful relative who immediately starts looking for flaws in your logic. You think they're giving you feedback, but they're actually performing a status audit. They're looking for a way to pull you back into the bucket of crabs because your growth makes their stagnation look like a choice. Machiavelli lived in a world where a single display of superior wit could lead to a dagger in the dark. He saw that the 99% of men stay average because they are addicts of their own vanity. They trade their strategic mystery for a 5-minute hit of validation. But the sovereign knows that true power lives in the vacuum of other people's underestimation. Machiavelli observed that the foundation of a man's ruin is often his own desire to be perceived as a threat before he has the resources to defend himself. He understood that to navigate a world full of wolves, you must first convince the wolves that you are a sheep. He wrote in The Prince, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few really know what you are." This is the first rule of the dummy strategy. Master the art of the sovereign disguise. To the world, you must appear predictable, harmless, and even confused. You must be the guy who asks stupid questions, who listens more than he speaks, and who allows others to feel like the teacher in the conversation. When you make someone feel more intelligent than you are doing something devastating. You are disabling their defense mechanisms. You are feeding their ego, and a man with an inflated ego is a man who stops being strategic. He stops looking for your shadow. He stops checking his own perimeter. Machiavelli knew that if you want to gather the most intelligence, you must become the information vacuum. By acting like a dummy, you force others to fill the silence with their own arrogance. They will reveal their secrets, their insecurities, and their true intentions because they think you are too dim to use that information against them. I saw a comment from a user named Marcus on our last deep dive into social power that perfectly illustrates this. He wrote, "I spent 3 years being the whiz kid in my corporate job. I'd finish everyone's sentences, solve every problem in the meeting, and brag about my side hustles. I thought I was on the fast track to the C-suite. Instead, I was bypassed for every promotion. My colleagues hated me, and my boss felt threatened. After learning about the internal ice and the dummy strategy, I moved to a new company and changed my whole vibe. Now, I act like I'm just getting by. I ask my boss for advice on things I already know. I act surprised when I hit my KPIs. Result? Everyone loves me. My boss thinks I'm his protege. My colleagues don't see me as a threat. Meanwhile, I'm quietly using the company's data to build my own agency in the dark. My ignorance is the only thing protecting my empire." Marcus realized that your brilliance is a target, but your stupidity is a shield. Machiavelli knew that the first method for estimating a ruler's intelligence is to look at the men he has around him. He understood that your circle is not just a social group. It is a vibration that either reinforces your authority or drains your share of glory. He wrote, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. The dummy strategy allows you to perform a constant, sovereign audit of your circle without them ever knowing they are being tested. When you act less intelligent, you see people's true faces. You see who treats you with respect regardless of your status, and you see who immediately starts to utility you the moment they think you are useful but weak. The 99% stay average because they want the aura of a leader without the industrial training of the observer. They want to lead the parade before they've even mapped the streets. But the sovereign knows that the dark period, the time of acting small, is where the real intelligence is gathered. Yours speaks soft by being average, but the weight of your internal ice is recording every move the snakes make. Think about the nice guy habit of competitive intelligence. You meet someone new, and you immediately start listing your credentials, your Machiavelli studies, and your trading wins. You want to bond through competence. But Machiavelli knew that bonding through competence is an invitation to rivalry. The moment you establish yourself as a high-value individual, the other person's ego begins to calculate how to surpass you. To build a dangerous mindset, you must be able to sit in a room and look like the least dangerous person there. You turn the conversation toward them. You ask them about their wins. You let them educate you on price action or Python or whatever they're proud of. While they're busy showing off, you are performing a shadow audit. You are looking for their leak. You are looking for their insecurity. You are honoring your title by realizing that your real power doesn't need a public audience. Another user, David, shared his experience with the strategic reveal. He wrote, "I had a cousin who was always trying to one-up me. If I bought a car, he bought a better one. If I started a business, he'd find a way to criticize it. I used the dummy strategy. I started telling him how hard the economy was for me and how I was struggling to understand the new markets. He got so comfortable feeling superior that he actually started telling me his real business secrets to show off. He gave me the contact of his main supplier and told me exactly how he was avoiding certain taxes. He thought he was helping a dummy. In reality, he was handing me the blueprint to his own obsolescence. By the time I made my next move, he was already irrelevant." David discovered that people will tell you anything if you make them feel like a genius. Machiavelli's most ruthless insight into the dummy strategy is that it allows you to bypass the law of envy. He saw that humans are willing to forgive your success, but they will never forgive your superiority. They can handle you being richer than them, but they cannot handle you being smarter than them. He believed that whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times. The conduct required for your current industrial training is the art of the control flaw. You must have a visible weakness that people can latch onto. Maybe you act like you're bad with technology, or you pretend to be forgetful about small details, or you admit to a fake struggle with your fitness goals. This flaw acts as a lightning rod for their envy. They focus on your dummy traits and ignore your sovereign progress. They feel mercy for you. And as we know from Machiavelli, a man who is pitted is a man who is never feared. And a man who is never feared is a man who can move through the world with absolute freedom. You are speak soft by being vulnerable, but the weight of your iron integrity is protecting your internal fire. Think about the nice guy habit of forced harmony. You want everyone to like you, so you try to be transparent. You think that being an open book is a sign of trust. But Machiavelli knew that an open book is a target for the editor. Every piece of information you give the world is a tool they can use to edit your destiny. When you use the dummy strategy, you are essentially providing the world with a fake chapter to read while the real story is being written in the vault of your mind. You are training the world to realize that your inner sanctum is not for sale. You are honoring your title by being the still point in a world of social noise. One of you wrote in the comments, "I realized that the reason I was always rattled by my relatives was because I was trying to prove to them that I'd changed. I wanted them to see the new me. I was average because I was still seeking their approval. The moment I started acting like the old, confused me around them, they stopped attacking. They went back to their own drama and left me alone. My dummy mask gave me the peace to actually build the new me without interference." This is the realization that your solitude is protected by your mask. We're going to talk about the law of the sovereign pivot, how to use your dummy status to deliver a psychological coup de grace, and how to master the art of the cold removal of rivals who have become too comfortable in your presence. The servant is still trying to be seen, but the ruler is already deciding the terms of the reveal. You've built the mask. You've settled into the role of the average man, and you've felt the immediate relief of no longer having to defend your ego in every conversation. Now, we move into the second phase of the Machiavellian disguise, the law of the sovereign pivot. Most men fail because they wear the mask for too long, or they forget that the mask is a weapon, not a lifestyle. They start to actually become the dummy. But the sovereign knows that the dummy strategy is a setup for a psychological strike. By appearing less intelligent, you are essentially lulling the enemy into a state of cognitive sleep. You are waiting for the moment when they are so convinced of your harmlessness that they leave their most vital assets, their information, their connections, or their share of glory, unguarded. This is when the pivot happens. You aren't just hiding your hand. You're preparing the cold reveal that will leave them paralyzed. Machiavelli lived in an era where the most effective coup was the one that nobody saw coming until the crown was already gone. He saw that the 99% of men stay average because they are eager. They want to reveal their strength the moment they feel it. But the sovereign knows that strength is most effective when it is unexpected. He understood that to navigate a social circle full of predators, you must be a master of the vacuum. You don't just act like a dummy. You act like a dummy who is reliable and useful. You become the person people talk around because they think you aren't listening or that you aren't weighty enough to understand the stakes. He wrote in his masterwork, "A prince ought to have no other aim or thought, nor select anything else for his study, than war and its rules and discipline." The war you are studying is the war of information. When you are the dummy, you are the ultimate infiltrator. People will gossip in front of you. They will complain about their bosses, reveal their financial shadows, and discuss their snakes because they don't see you as a threat. They think you are safe. This is the industrial training of a sovereign. You are collecting the blueprint of their lives while they are busy networking with the people they do fear. You are speak soft by being humble, but the weight of your sovereign audit is recording every vulnerability. You are training the world to realize that your silence is not empty. It is a vault of their secrets. I saw a comment from a user named Leo that perfectly captures the sovereign pivot. He wrote, "I had a business partner who was much older and much more successful than me. He treated me like a junior assistant for 2 years. He'd explain the most basic concepts to me as if I were a child. I used the dummy strategy. I took notes, I thanked him for his wisdom, and I acted like I was just lucky to be there. Meanwhile, I was quietly building relationships with his key suppliers and learning his entire supply chain. When the contract was up for renewal, I performed the pivot. I didn't argue. I simply presented a proposal to the suppliers that was 10% more efficient than his. By the time he realized I wasn't the kid anymore, I had already taken 40% of his business. He was shocked. He called me traitor. I didn't respond. I just stayed polite and confused. I told him I just found a better way. I didn't think it would be a big deal. My dummy act made his defeat feel like an accident, which prevented him from starting a real war with me." Leo realized that the best victory is the one the enemy thinks he lost to bad luck. The second part of the pivot is the art of the cold removal. When you act less intelligent, you inevitably attract subtractors, people who want to use your weakness for their own gain. These are the snakes who think they can utility you without consequence. Machiavelli knew that once you have identified these people, you must remove them with internal ice. But you don't do it with a big alpha speech. You do it through systemic obsolescence. You simply become vibrationally unavailable. You stop answering the favor requests. You stop being the hype man for their drama. Because they think you are a dummy, they won't even realize they're being cut. They'll just think you forgot to reply or that you're busy with something simple. You are honoring your title by realizing that your circle is a curated asset, and anything that doesn't add to your share of glory must be deleted. Machiavelli understood that the first method for estimating a ruler's intelligence is to look at the men he has around him. When you use the dummy strategy, you are effectively auditing the quality of your circle. If people treat you poorly because they think you are small, they have revealed their own low-status character. If they try to scam you because they think you are confused, they have revealed their snake nature. He believed that. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. At level 4 or 5 of intelligence, you have performed this audit so many times that your circle is now full of multipliers, people who respect you for your substance, not your mask. But you keep the mask for the public arena. You keep the mask for the relatives who only want to borrow money, for the friends who only want to kill time, and for the rivals who are looking for a target. You are scarcely available with your true genius. You are training the world to realize that your inner sanctum is a sacred vault that is only open to the vetted. You are speak soft by being polite in the removal, but the weight of your sovereign focus is making them irrelevant to your story. Another user, James, shared his experience with the audit. He wrote, "I started acting broke and confused around my old friend group just to see what would happen. Within 2 months, the loyal ones stayed, but the ones who were only there for the status of being around a successful guy vanished. They stopped inviting me to the high-end dinners because they didn't want to carry me. I realized that my success was the only thing they liked about me. The dummy strategy saved me years of fake friendship. Now, I have a circle of 3 guys who actually have iron integrity. We don't hang out, we industrialize. I realized that being uncool is the best way to find out who is real." James discovered that isolation is the byproduct of high standards. Machiavelli's final insight for part 2 is about the law of the mirror. When you act less intelligent, you are essentially providing a mirror for the other person's ego. They see in you whatever makes them feel superior. If they are a know-it-all, they see a pupil. If they are a bully, they see a victim. If they are a snake, they see an opportunity. By reflecting their own desires back to them, you gain the ultimate psychological dominance. You are the director of the play, and they're just actors following a script they didn't even know you wrote. He believed that whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times. The conduct required for the coup de grace is the selective reveal. You only show your genius at the exact moment when it produces the maximum share of glory. You don't brag about your trading wins or your Python automation. You simply apply them. You let the results be your only announcement. While 99% are still talking about what they're going to do, you have already done it. You are speak soft by being neutral, but the weight of your verified merit is hitting their reality like a hammer. You are training the world to realize that you're the point of certainty and that your shadow is the only place where real power grows. Think about the nice guy habit of over-explaining. You feel the need to justify your aura and your title to people who don't even respect you. But Machiavelli knew that explanations are for the weak, results are for the strong. When you use the dummy strategy, you stop explaining, you stop defending, you stop performing. You realize that your share of glory is not a topic for the group chat. It is a mission that requires iron integrity and strategic silence. You are no longer a participant in the group's mediocrity. You are the standard they now have to measure themselves against. One of you wrote, "I realized that the reason I was always loud was because I was afraid of being forgotten. I was average because I was addicted to the dopamine of being right. Once I started using the dummy strategy and the mirror, the fear vanished. I'm not forgotten. I'm scarcely available. I'm a sovereign building an empire in the quietest room in the city." This user has found the Machiavellian pivot. He has realized that your value is built in the things you don't say. We're going to talk about the integration of the immovable, how to live as a man of iron integrity every day, and how to handle the final coronation of your new identity. The servant is still looking for friends, but you're about to become the standard. You have worn the mask until it felt like a second skin. You have gathered the intelligence that only a dummy can access, and you have performed the sovereign pivot turning the underestimation of your enemies into the blueprint for their obsolescence. But now, we arrive at the final and most profound threshold of the Machiavellian journey, the integration of the immovable in your final coronation. This is the moment where the dummy strategy stops being a costume you put on for social gatherings and becomes the foundation of your permanent authority. Most men fail here because they find the isolation of the heights too cold. After you win, after you emerge from your dark period and show the world the results of the industrial training you did in secret, there is often a profound silence. Your phone stops ringing with the same frequency of trivial gossip. The old guys who used to explain basic concepts to you suddenly look away when you enter the room. The nice guy within you will feel a desperate, clawing urge to bridge the gap, to go back and explain himself, or to share his future plans just to feel included again. But Machiavelli knew that the void created by your success is actually the incubation chamber for a legend. This final stage is about becoming so deeply aligned with your mission that you no longer care if the world is watching, because you're the only audience that matters. Machiavelli lived in a world where integrity wasn't about being nice. It was about being consistent. He saw that the 99% of men stay average because they are afraid of the social vacuum. They would rather have a circle full of hidden enemies who know their every move than a room full of honest, high-status silence. But the sovereign understands that the silence is where your internal ice hardens. You have undergone a psychological exorcism. You have removed the need for outside approval, and now you must heal the need that made you want to play the dummy in the first place. Machiavelli knew that we are only manipulated by others when we want something from them more than we want the truth of our own power. He understood that the master of deception is not just the one who lies, but the one who understands the desperate desire of others to be lied to. He wrote in The Prince, "He who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived." The nice guy version of you allowed himself to be deceived by the group's support because he wanted the feeling of being a winner without doing the work. But you have killed that version of yourself. You are no longer allowing the deception. By integrating the cold eye, you are signaling to every potential snake and every envious rival that the entry price to your life has skyrocketed. You're no longer looking for friends to gossip with. You're looking for allies to conquer with. This shift in your vibration is the ultimate deterrent. A rival looks for a soft target, a man who is desperate to tell his story. When they look at you now, they see a point of certainty, a man who is perfectly comfortable being the mystery in their story. Your dummy mask hasn't just protected your plans. It has vetted your entire social circle. You now know exactly who was willing to talk down to you when they thought you were small, and you know exactly who respected you when you had nothing. I saw a comment from a user named Leo that perfectly captures this final transition. He wrote, "The month after I performed the sovereign reveal of my new company, my life felt empty. I almost called my old coworkers just to catch up and see what they were saying. I wanted that hit of validation. But then I realized that the empty space was the first time in my career I could actually hear my own vision. I wasn't being drained by their advice or subtly discouraged by their jokes. In that silence, I started my second venture. The vacuum wasn't a loss. It was a promotion. I realized that the sovereign doesn't fear the void. He colonizes it. My dummy days taught me that I don't need their permission to be a king." Leo has reached the sovereign frequency. He has realized that the silence of the sovereign is more powerful than the noise of the masses. Machiavelli understood that the strength of the prince is the only true security of the state. He believed that the 99% stay average because they are cowards of the soul. They are afraid of the dark period because they don't trust what they will find in the mirror when the music stops. But you have faced your shadow. You have spent the weekends in industrial training, while the utility men were out distracting themselves. You have developed a vibration of competence that cannot be faked. Machiavelli understood that this internal integrity is the only thing that makes the path forward clear. He wrote, "Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great. Your willingness to be immovable, to keep your mouth shut and play the dummy, even when you were winning in the dark, is what makes the difficulties of social envy vanish. When you decide that your share of glory is more important than the approval of the mediocre, you become dangerous to the system. You are no longer a predictable unit that can be managed through social pressure or the fear of being different. You have become a self-validating entity. This is the final coronation. You are putting the crown on your own head by deciding that you are the only legitimate judge of your own value. You are speaking soft by staying calm and polite when the old circle tries to status shame you for your success. But the weight of your internal coronation is hitting the world like a hammer. You are training everyone around you, including the potential snakes, to realize that you belong to no one but your mission. I saw another comment from Maria that hits the heart of this transformation. I stopped explaining my success to my family. They still remember me as the quiet, confused girl from 5 years ago, and I let them keep that image. I still play the dummy at Thanksgiving, so I don't have to hear their requests for money or their concerns about my business. I realized that my success is a secret I keep for myself. I didn't get their respect because I was nice. I got it because I was immovable. My silence became my shield. Now, when I walk into a room, I don't look for a seat at the table. I realize I am the table. Maria realized that silence is the language of the sovereign. And finally, a comment from Chris that perfectly illustrates the quality of the new circle that forms after the reveal. I used to be so afraid of being alone that I told everyone my moves just to stay relevant. But Machiavelli taught me that trust is for the weak, audit is for the strong. Once I went dark, played the dummy, and built my empire, I started attracting a completely different kind of person. My new chosen circle doesn't ask me what I'm doing, they watch what I've done. They don't try to keep me humble. They try to push me higher because they know that if I win, the whole alliance wins. I realized that my old circle was a bucket of crabs, but my new circle is a pack of lions. I didn't have to find them. I just had to become a sovereign so they could recognize me. Chris discovered that the lions are waiting for you to stop playing with the snakes. Machiavelli understood that the ultimate goal of the ruler is not just to survive, but to leave a legacy of order. He believed that a man must take full responsibility for his destiny and not leave it to the whims of others or the support of the mediocre. He knew that your power is a gift you give yourself through discipline and a refusal to be common. He wrote, God is not willing to do everything, and thus take away our free will and that share of glory which belongs to us. Your share of glory is the construction of a life where you are surrounded by iron integrity. It is the peace of mind that comes from knowing that your circle has been vetted through the cold eye, even if that means the circle is smaller than it used to be. You are no longer a participant in the frantic scramble for social validation. You have become the standard. You are the still point that the formidable must navigate around. You are the man who can never be bitten again because you have seen the mechanism of the snake and you have chosen the sovereignty of the lion. You have learned to hide your next move and play the dummy, not because you are afraid, but because you are sacred. You are protecting the fire of your ambition from the wind of the world. A user named Ahmad shared a final realization that hits the aura perfectly. I realized that the reason I was always loud was because I was afraid of being forgotten. I was average because I was addicted to the dopamine of being right. Once I started using the dummy strategy and the mirror, the fear vanished. I'm not forgotten, I'm scarcely available. I'm a sovereign building an empire in the quietest room in Karachi. My dummy mask is the most expensive thing I own because it bought me my freedom. Ahmad has found the Machiavellian pivot. He has realized that your value is built into things you don't say. You've been reshaped, not inspired, not motivated. Rebuilt from the inside out. You killed self-doubt, not with affirmations, but with action. You didn't wait to feel ready. You moved, you acted, and you learned that power doesn't belong to the perfect. It belongs to the bold. You took rejection and turned it into fuel. No more chasing approval. Now you let people feel the cost of losing you. You became scarce, strategic, silent, and they noticed. You stopped entering rooms to be accepted. Now you own them through presence, posture, and precision. You no longer speak to be heard. You speak as if no one can afford to disagree. And above all, you rewired your identity. You're no longer predictable. You're no longer easily moved. You've become unreachable, emotionally untouchable. They can't provoke you. They can't tempt you. They can't shake you because you belong to no one now. And that makes you unforgettable. That's what creates a legend. Not noise, not fame, powerful silence, cold clarity, ruthless consistency. You don't need to announce your transformation. They'll feel it in your walk, in your tone, in your absence. You become the man people observe quietly. The one who used to chase, now being chased. The one who used to ask, now deciding. The one who no longer needs approval because he became the standard. So no, this wasn't just about confidence. This was about dominance, mental, emotional, psychological. You're not here to fit in. You are here to move the pieces, to bend the room, to haunt their memory, even in silence. Because legends don't beg, they don't explain. They exist, and the world reshapes around them. Final command. Like, share and subscribe, etc. to the video if you're done being the nice guy and you're ready to be the sovereign. Share this with one man who is still talking too much and winning too little, and join the ranks of the immovable. The social game is over. It's time to start the conquest. Are you ready to take your seat?